Good afternoon. I am Donna Williams, Chief Audience Development Officer at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Welcome. We are honored to have you here and to celebrate Mrs. Eunice Johnson. I want to thank Macy's for supporting this luncheon. I also want to thank the Multicultural Audience Development Advisory Committee, whose mission is to extend a museum welcome to all communities. Of course, I must introduce our host committee for all of their wonderful work and contribution. Gail Perkins Atkins, Carol Sutton Lewis, David Mitas, B. Michael, Audrey Smaltz, Andre Leon Talley, Lizzie Tisch, Isabel and Ruben Toledo, and of course, Linda Johnson Rice. For approximately 8 months, the Costume Institute and the Multicultural Initiative have been preparing for this afternoon. With the passing of Mrs. Johnson, we wouldn't be able to share our tribute with her, but we salute her and we offer her our gratitude for her vision, her style, and commitment to community philanthropy. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our director, Thomas Campbell.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here today to celebrate the extraordinary work of Eunice Johnson, a woman who paved the way for so many African American designers and models and had such a tremendous impact on underrepresented communities throughout the country. The Metropolitan Museum is a place that was founded on the idea that exposure to works of art could inspire the public. As the producer and director of the Ebony Fashion Fair, Mrs. Johnson paralleled and built on that same vision, introducing African American audiences to the greatest works of fashion and haute couture. Her presentations of high fashion on black models transformed the way that audiences saw themselves and had an impact far beyond styles and trends. The effect was one of strengthening as well as inspiring the communities to whom she spoke most powerfully. It is a privilege to honor Mrs. Johnson here today within these galleries and among so many friends and colleagues. For those of you who are able, we invite you after lunch to tour this magnificent space in which the lunch is being held, the Egyptian temple of Dendur from the year 15 BC. It's the only Egyptian temple in the Western Hemisphere and was given to the United States in 1965 by Egypt and awarded to the Metropolitan Museum in 1967. So I mention that just to give you a bit of context for the setting in which this lunch is being held. I'd also like to acknowledge Mrs. Johnson's daughter, Linda Johnson Rice. Linda continues the Johnson legacy as chairman and CEO of their family publishing company. We will hear from many voices today about the contributions of your mother, Linda. Collectively, they represent the affection and respect that we all hold for her and her many outstanding achievements. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce a very special guest, a great champion of the arts, one of our most treasured supporters, and a dear friend of the Johnson family and the Metropolitan Museum. It's a great honor indeed to introduce President Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell, for the work you do, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. I'm honored to be here with Linda and Alexa and all of you. I thank you for going on with this lunch. I got to know Eunice Johnson about 25 years ago because her husband was from Arkansas City, Arkansas, the southeasternmost town in our native state, with one road in and one road out. It is built up against the levee on the Mississippi River. And John Johnson was invited to come home to get some sort of award, and I gave him a state police escort. I was governor at the time, and he said, you know, I didn't even want to come back here. It was so bad when I left. And then I saw this state police car, and I spent my whole childhood trying to stay away from the police. And then I realized that I was being escorted, so maybe something has changed. Over the years, I saw the work that the Johnsons did and the remarkable partnership they had through Ebony and Jet and the fashion shows, the cosmetics lines. I respected them because they had a partnership at a time when very few married couples did. I respected her because she found a way to use women's love of fashion to do good, to raise $55 million for the United Negro College Fund, for civil rights causes, for hospitals, for community groups. A stunning thing, year in and year out, and she was running this thing until last year. When I had the honor to walk down the church aisle with her in 2005 at John's funeral, I thought to myself, she is still a remarkably attractive woman. And John, and Linda was joking me, she said, you know, men from Arkansas found my mother attractive. She had an ageless vitality that I hope will live on forever through these shows. I hope you'll all keep doing this forever. And I'm also very proud of the work that Linda has done in taking over her father and now her mother's vast undertakings. This family has given a lot to our country, and it has done an enormous amount to change the way African Americans think about themselves, see themselves, and the way the rest of America sees them. The cosmetics issue may seem frivolous to people who've never been on the short end of what it was like before. People whose skin was different from others had no way of getting cosmetics that worked. It's a very big deal. It makes a statement that goes way beyond the time it takes to put the makeup on. And I just hope that all of us will always remember this astonishing woman who lived more than 90 years and kept working till the end. It's still a relative rarity, but you should know, if you don't, that the fastest growing group of Americans in percentage terms are people over 85. that while we have nowhere near the longest life expectancy in the world, it's because we lose too many people in their young years. But if you live to be 65 in America, you're in the oldest senior population on earth. If you live to be 65 and you're a woman, your life expectancy is about 85. If you're a man, it's about almost 83 now. So we're all going to have to take Eunice as a role model. And remember that as long as you're doing good, you can be forever young. Thank you, and God bless you, Linda.
You can imagine that following President Clinton is something of a nightmare for the next speaker. I feel a bit like, to take a fashion analogy, like what it must have been for a runway model coming on after Pat Cleveland in the 1970s. About a year ago, when we began to think about the next person we would pay a tribute to at this event, we were in the midst of working on Model as Muse, and we came across this fact that we hadn't seen before, that Miss Cleveland had actually, as a teenager, been launched on the stage of the Ebony Fashion Fair, which got us to really think about what was the fashion fair. Of course, the power behind the Ebony Fashion Fair was Eunice Walker Johnson. Perhaps not surprisingly, her philanthropic efforts associated with this event were widely appreciated throughout her lifetime, and she had more acknowledgement and rewards than it's possible to enumerate. What was surprising to us, however, is that the fashion community had never extended the same kind of acknowledgement. And this is to a woman who, not only to the African American community, but to Americans, provided an exposure for the first time to the haute couture. I mean, it's something that is so unfathomable now when we have style.com and projections of fashion images on the internet. But at a time when, for any American to be able to see these remarkable examples of the highest art of fashion was really compelling. Eunice Johnson used the power of fashion to upend prior definitions of beauty and self-worth. Through the Ebony Fashion Fair, without ponderous proselytizing, she blew open the narrow confines of what constituted prevailing traditional American standards of aesthetics and introduced extraordinary range of body types and skin tones, all represented in her extravaganzas. Fashion is often dismissed as a superficial, ephemeral, and self-indulgent practice. But for Mrs. Johnson, as the video we're going to now screen for you, and it's edited from a much longer version that celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Ebony Fashion Fair in 2006. For Mrs. Johnson, fashion was an essential means of personal and social expression and validation. Through Mrs. Johnson's ambitious worldview, the ostensibly trivial world of fashion became a tool of empowerment, and linked with her commitment to education, health, and equal rights, fashion became an inspired mechanism for social change. I invite you now to look at the video screens.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your attention. For those of you who I don't know or haven't met today, I'm Emily Rafferty, President of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Thank you. And I join all the speakers before me in paying great tribute here today to Eunice Johnson. At this time, I'd like to introduce to the podium Desirée Rogers, White House Social Secretary and close family friend of the Johnsons. We count Desirée. At the Met, we count Desirée a very close friend. We worked with her on several major events in the last year with President and Mrs. Obama, who we continue to welcome here on any occasion, and it's a great pleasure to have you with us today, Desirée.
Well, Emily, thank you so much. We have had the opportunity to be here twice in the less than a year's time that the administration has been in place. Once for the opening of the American Wing. Mrs. Obama was here to salute that, so you're so kind to have received us at that point in time. And then the last time we were actually in this room saluting the different nations from the United Nations. So I feel like this is home. I'd like to read the letter from the President and Mrs. Obama to all of you in regards to the passing of Eunice Johnson and also really the honoring of her today in her life. Michelle and I send our thoughts and prayers to all those honoring Eunice Johnson. The story of our nation is marked by visionary men and women dedicated to preserving and expanding equality and opportunity for all Americans. Through their unique efforts and contributions, trailblazers such as Eunice Johnson have improved lives, increased opportunities for others, touched the hearts of many, and shaped our future. As a philanthropist and entrepreneur, Eunice wrote her own chapter in our history. To those she influenced through her work, she was an inspiration. To those who knew her and loved her, she was much more. A caring wife, mother, and friend, and she will be sorely missed. As you reflect upon her memory and her legacy, I join you in mourning the loss of Eunice Johnson and paying tribute to her extraordinary life. Signed, Barack Obama.
As many have pointed out before me today, Mrs. Johnson was an iconic pioneer in the fashion world, as well as a noted philanthropist who gave back so much to her community and to her nation. Since her passing, tributes have been expressed worldwide, and we are fortunate to have received many such statements here at the Met, of course, from President and Mrs. Obama, and also to my left here, from Governor Patterson, from the Speaker of the New York City Council, Chris Quinn, and a message from Mayor Bloomberg. All of these articulate the contributions that Mrs. Johnson made to fashion, media, women, and the country. She was a role model, businesswoman, but most important of all, a human being who cared deeply about people, all people. I'd like to introduce now Linda Johnson Rice. Linda, we express our heartfelt condolences and offer our admiration and respect for your continuing work. And it gives us all at the Met great pleasure today in having you here in honor of your mother and her singular and your many achievements.
Thank you all so much. I am really thrilled to be here, and it's a very humbling and very terrific privilege. I'm surrounded by my family, my daughter Alexa, stand up, who of course is a fashionista and is in head to toe in Azzedine Alaya, and my dear friends who came in from Chicago, all these different places, thank you so much. My best friend Desirée, who brought greetings from the President, and also from my other favorite president, Bill Clinton. I mean, what a doll. It was a thrill to have him. I do want to thank the Met for reaching out and hosting this fantastic luncheon. This is really quite a privilege. My mother would be absolutely, absolutely thrilled. She would be absolutely thrilled. It'd be wonderful for her. I know she is looking down on all of us and all of her wonderful clothes there and thinking, wow, I did a pretty doggone good job. I do also want to thank the host committee, several of which are my dearest friends, Carol Sutton-Lewis and David Midas, and all the host committee, Gail, who worked so hard to put all of this together. I'm not going to speak very long because it is difficult. I see my great editor-in-chief there and my president of our company, and if I start picking out people, we'll be here all day long. But I do want to say that my mother really was a champion, and she really paved the road for, as you can see in the video, a lot of African-American models, but it really was about feeling beautiful about yourself and really finding the strength within yourself to be able to stand tall and to be proud of who you are and never ever forget that. And yes, she did fight a lot of battles. She was an absolute pioneer. There were doors that were open for her and she opened for other people, but there were doors that were closed to her too, but that didn't matter because she just stuck one, handmade Dalco shoe in the door and just kept pushing it right on open. So she managed to open the doors and and really take, I think, a great African American community with her. And so for that, I really do want to thank everybody here. This is a great honor and a fantastic privilege. I can't go on and on because then I'll break down, but thank you so much.